Welcome everybody to Game On. I hope Thanksgiving was well spent, but even with the long weekend, sports don't stop, especially for the UFC. With the conclusion of UFC 229 in the early morning of Sunday, much controversy has been stirred up due to post-fight antics. It's time to call on the experts, so I call in Brent Free of Steel City MMA to discuss all of his thoughts on the fight and what happened after the match. Also, share that Facebook post from Sioux Online as tomorrow we give away 2 tickets to Sunday's Greyhound game against the North Bay Battalion. Let's kick off another week of Game On. On this day, over 100 years ago in 1916, Babe Ruth begins his 29 2/3 scoreless World Series inning streak, a record that would be broken in 1961, also on this day, by Yankees' Whitey Ford. The 1974 Washington Capitals played their first game, losing 6-3 to the New York Rangers at Madison Square Garden. This would be the start of the Capitals' 37-game road losing streak. In 1986, Gilbert Perreault of the Buffalo Sabres becomes the 12th NHLer to score 500 goals. In total, there are now 45 500-goal scorers. 1989 was a year that changed the NFL, as the first NFL game was coached by an African-American named Art Shell. His LA Raiders beat the New York Jets 14-7 on Monday Night Football. And in 1997, the New York Rangers are the first NHL team to open with 4 straight ties. And finally, a happy 38th birthday shout-out goes out to Henrik Zetterberg, who was born October 9th, 1980. Welcome back to Game On, where we're here now to discuss the conclusion of UFC 229, and I'm sure you couldn't avoid it. It was all over social media. If you were swept up in the hype of it yourselves, I can't blame you. It was quite the build all the way up to it. Now I'm speaking with Brent Free of Steel City MMA, the so-called expert, I'd say, of the panel between the two of us. Now, Brent, if you actually went and spent your money on a ticket to go to the show, would you say you got your money's worth out of it?
Oh, definitely. I mean, even outside of the main event, which was the main one, it was a great night of MMA. There's some great fights and some really good performances. Definitely got your money's worth out of that one.
And you came in before, and we talked about the fight before it happened. We talked after the presser that they had. You said the Vegas oddmakers probably had it right saying Khabib was the favorite. I guess you could say you were right then for sure. But based on what you've seen from him, what made you think that he had the advantage and that Vegas got it right?
The style matchup, Conor's history with people with a slightly similar style, although not quite as good as Khabib at that type of style. Right. So Conor has had trouble with that style in the past, and Khabib is the best at that.
And what makes Conor's, let's explain Conor's style, I guess, to people that might not be fully well aware, and why doesn't that match up against Khabib's wrestling style?
He just doesn't have the wrestling background. When you're talking about somebody like Khabib, who's been wrestling and grappling his whole life, versus Conor, who's been striking most of his life, you can't make up for that differential in a few months or a year. There's just not enough time to close that gap.
And for UFC fans, everybody knows Conor's basically the face of the UFC, the biggest name, the biggest draw. But with Khabib beating him now, is there any room for Khabib to kind of slide into that spot of the face of the UFC?
I don't think Khabib necessarily wants that. He has a different motivation. He wants to be the best, and for him, it's mostly about performance and being the best fighter in the world. It's not as much about the antics and the promotion side of it.
Right. I think McGregor's going to do a great job at drawing in the cash from the character that he is, but like you say, Khabib's, the way he even took on that match, the people I was with, very, very casual fans, man. You wanted to see more punches thrown, but as you were saying, there's kickboxing for that, and Khabib's a wrestler. He's going to play for the points, for the takedowns, and what's ultimately going to win him a belt, which happened. So with Conor, with defeating Conor now, does that cement Khabib's legacy almost now in the UFC, making him one of the best of all time?
Oh, definitely. You know, people talk about Conor possibly being a 2-division champ, being one of the best ever. And when you have a dominant performance against somebody that people think might be one of the best ever, you can't not be in that conversation.
Would you say Conor's one of the best ever? Would you be somebody that's putting that into that conversation?
I don't necessarily agree with that. He is a tremendous fighter. Obviously, he has proven a lot of people wrong at every turn. I don't think he is one of the best ever. He is probably the best promoter ever.
Yes.
He is definitely a tremendous fighter, and he was a deserving champion, but I don't think he's one of the best champions ever.
Very fair. Now, speaking of how well he is at promoting the actual fights themselves, with Khabib now being the champion, is that going to make it harder for UFC to sell these pay-per-views?
I mean, Khabib now, based on this fight, will be a bigger draw regardless of what he does promotion-wise or not, and they can still promote Conor's fight. So as opposed to where on this fight, they could promote a Conor McGregor fight and a championship fight, and it was only one fight. Now they can promote a championship fight and a Conor McGregor fight as two separate events. So I don't think it'll hurt them too much in terms of promotion. And
what took especially social media by storm was the post-fight antics. While you were watching them, what were the thoughts flowing through your head as it was happening?
It's too bad that I would say Khabib, whose whole body of work has shown a tremendous amount of sportsmanship and that type of thing. It's too bad that for the casual fans, their only real exposure to him is maybe him stooping to the level of Conor McGregor and his crew. That's not typical of his behavior, so that's kind of unfortunate. But I mean, you can only push somebody so far, and the UFC promoted all the nasty parts of that where Conor was attacking Khabib's religion, his family, his country, and it's important to remember that Khabib is just a guy, and everybody has a breaking point. So the UFC promoted it that way, and so that's what they got.
Was the belt just not enough for him, though? That's what I mean. Like, beating Conor was this unachievable feat that seemed like it might not be able to happen. He did it. Was that just not enough? I mean, like you say, there is a breaking point, but I think being able to take that belt, hold it up, and that should be more than enough to say that I am better.
Well, he knows he's better, and I think he's known that since before the fight, that in his mind, that's a foregone conclusion. The backstory is the guy that he jumped over the cage to go after has a history of, I mean, he's been kicked out of gyms in the past, and his antics towards towards Khabib are kind of what fueled that. So it wasn't really about the belt, or it wasn't about the money or anything like that. It was him doing basically what he saw as defending his family, his religion, and his country.
And does this help sell the rematch? I mean, it has to be a foregone conclusion now that they are definitely going to have Khabib Conor 2, no?
I hope not. I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think being dominated and finished before the bell really deserves a rematch. And there's plenty of other fights out there. Tony Ferguson won on this card, and he was stripped. He actually, you could make an argument, is the rightful title holder. He had the title, was stripped of it because of an injury, wasn't able to defend. So I think they will likely do Khabib versus Tony Ferguson.
That would be an interesting matchup too. I mean, if you watch the whole card, you'll see Tony Ferguson gave an absolutely tremendous bout the whole way through. But now, when it comes to discipline for Khabib, Conor, I mean, like we were talking before, the list goes on for his antics all the way through his entire career. With Khabib now attacking somebody that wasn't a part of the match whatsoever, is there going to be harder discipline put on him now because of that, as opposed to anything Conor's done?
You mean, will he be more disciplined or have to
Right.
be more disciplined? I think that was a one-time thing. I don't think it's in his nature. I think he is already feeling the repercussions of it. I don't imagine you'll see anything like that from him again.
Will you see any discipline? Do you see a ban for maybe 6 months, 12 months that's been rumored circulating around? And with the 12-month ban also comes the stripping of a title, something you don't see really going to be any chance of happening.
Yeah, I think the fans would be upset that you're stripping the rightful title holder. There will be some disciplinary action from the athletic commission. There may be a ban. I don't think they will strip him of the title. I think that would be a bad move, especially considering what he did. I mean, Conor McGregor did the exact same thing. He when he won a previous fight, he left the cage and went after Jose Aldo, and there was no disciplinary action there. So they're going to have to show some consistency in whatever their discipline measures are.
And let's just say there is a rematch. Conor's called Dana already twice saying, let's get this match happening. If there is a rematch, is your money still on Khabib?
Yeah, I don't see it changing too much.
I mean, it was just pure dominance from the first bell ring to the end of the match. It was basically it. If there was to be fair punishment for Khabib, what would you say it would have to be, if any?
There may be a short suspension. There's probably going to be a monetary
A fine of some sort.
some type. I think that's fair. That's probably it.
And with UFC's 230 coming up too, any matches on there that you're really looking forward to?
I am looking forward to that one, but some of the matches that it being in Toronto, after all, some of the matches that I'm looking forward to are not maybe some of the marquee matchups, but
Okay.
because there are some, some Canadian fighters on that card who may be on the prelims or the earlier on in the fight. So
Right.
I'll be paying a little bit more close attention to some of the early fights with maybe some people that I know or have crossed paths with.
Absolutely. So if you're looking to support some local talent or some national talent as well, you can tune into UFC 230. But Brent, thank you so much for coming in.
Great to be
Always
back.
appreciate you coming in and having a chat with us. So stay tuned for Game On. Plenty more after this. Welcome back to Game On, where earlier in the news you heard that Barrett Hayton is making a return to the OHL's Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, and you should have seen his eyes light up when he came into the office today when he thought we could talk about it. So that's what we're here to do. We're going to just break it down a little bit with Matt joining me here to my left. So Matt, first off, I want to know not why Barrett's back, but why wasn't Barrett able to crack the lineup for the Coyotes this year?
Well, the thing with Barrett Hayton is, he was good enough to be in the NHL this year. And again, the kid's only 18. He was a 5th overall pick this year in the NHL entry draft. The Coyotes have not made the playoffs in 6 years, I believe it is. So again, Barrett Hayton, he made the opening night roster because he had to fill in for Alex Galchenyuk and Christian Dvorak, who were both on the injured reserve. But then the thing was this, though, then he got injured and then he couldn't play. So they go, instead of making him sit out, why not send him back to the Hounds, which I thought was the right move to do.
Well, are they sending back an injured Barrett Hayton now? Because when we did take a look at the list, me and you were both surprised to see that he was sitting on the list with an undisclosed injury. Are we getting back a little banged up Barrett Hayton, or are we getting back Barrett Hayton ready to go?
No, I think we're getting back Barrett Hayton ready to go because we're talking a guy, he's been with the Hounds for 2 seasons already now. He was drafted by the Hounds in the first round, 9th overall back in 2016, had 9 goals in his rookie season, and then when you look at his season last year where he helped the Hounds all the way to the OHL final for the first time since 1993, he had 21 goals and 39 assists in 63 regular season games,
Yeah.
But again, this was a guy that was a 20-goal scorer and played mostly on the third line last year. Because look how deep the Greyhounds roster was last year with, Tim Gettinger, Boris Kachuk, Jack Kapaka.
The list goes on and on.
And again, they had a very deep roster. But when the Coyotes took him 5th overall this past June, they go this guy would have put up bigger numbers if he had more ice time.
That's fair. Who are you hoping to see, not Kapaka, excuse me, that's the last name you said there, got stuck in my head. But who is somebody you'd like to see Hayton get on a line with this year?
I'd have to say Morgan Frost, because when you look at him and Morgan Frost, Frost was our top scorer last year. He had 42 goals and 70 assists. And not to mention, Frost became the first Greyhounds having a 100-point season last year since Nick Cousins did back in 2013. And look, if Hayton would have played on the Coyotes this year, he would have been a teammate of Nick Cousins, because now Nick Cousins is now with the Arizona Coyotes. And another interesting thing about Morgan Frost is he was also drafted in the first round by the Philadelphia Flyers back in 2017. And like Nick Cousins, he was also drafted by Philadelphia too, started his NHL career with them, and now he's with the Arizona Coyotes. So there's a lot of Sioux connections right there. So it goes to show you that the Coyotes, they really like our Greyhounds.
They know their stuff, that. But before we go to break quickly, are you disappointed at all, or do you think Hayton's disappointed at all in the fact that he wasn't able to suit up for the Coyotes? And do you think it would have been beneficial for his growth to maybe get in a couple of those 9 games?
Well, I think it's kind of a 50-50 thing right now with Barrett Hayton because, again, he's happy he was drafted 5th overall by the Coyotes. And again, if he's going to make the Coyotes but then not get enough playing time against those full-grown men, against, the 35-year-olds, the 25-year-olds, I think it's best that Hayton gets at least one more season with the Greyhounds before making the Coyotes full-time. Because when you look at Jared McCann, do you remember Jared McCann for the Greyhounds?
Playing for the Florida Panthers now.
Exactly. He was a first-round pick of the Vancouver Canucks, and I remember when he cracked the opening night roster for the Vancouver Canucks back in the 2015-16 season, he had 5 goals in his first 9 games played with the Canucks, and then after 9 games, he made the roster as a 19-year-old, but then in his final 60 games with the Canucks, he only scored 4 times after that. So this was a guy, he was trying to make the roster as a 19-year-old, scores 5 goals in 9 games, but then 4 in his last 60. So that's the thing that you got to be careful with when you get an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old trying to make your team, because sometimes they may play good in the 9-game trial, but then they might have a slump the rest of the season. So I think it's a great fit that Hayton is back with the Greyhounds, because that way he could have a breakout season, hopefully lead the Greyhounds to a championship, as we all want as Sioux fans. And, you want it, I want it, Alex wants it. And again, he's going to have good teammates. He's going to be coached under John Dean, who's no stranger to the OHL. He's been an assistant coach with the North Bay Battalion. And again, maybe Hayton will even be named captain. Who knows? But now we have 2 first-rounders on our team, and Morgan Frost and Barrett Hayton.
You want it, I want it, he wants it. Barrett Hayton's coming back to the Greyhounds. We're pumped, and hopefully they can improve that 3-3-1 record along their way to possibly a championship. More Game On after this. Well, that's it, everybody. Game On is over. Big thanks go out once again to Brent Freya for stopping by the studio and having a quick chat. Stay tuned to tomorrow's episode to find out if you're the lucky winner in our Greyhound ticket giveaway. But you should also tune in every Tuesday to Friday at 8:30 p.m. to catch all of the episodes. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful evening. And that's it. You found yourself at the end of another Game On video, but there's more. If you're looking for more Game On content from Matt and myself, you'll be able to find exactly that right here.